Hi, and welcome back to ENTP Life. In today's video, I'm going over my worst purchase. I can't even call this an investment because it really wasn't. It was just a total waste of money. But before we get into that, it's that time, hit that subscription button. Don't forget to turn your notification bells on. And since YouTube really cares about likes and that's how they promote my video better, don't forget to hit that like button if you find ENTP Life to be helpful for you. So what exactly was my worst purchase and when did it happen? So back in 2007, right when I graduated from college, I felt that I needed to show the world that I had made it. So what did I go out and do? I bought a new car. Now, a new car is the dumbest, most outrageous use of money because a car, I can't even call it an asset. It is an asset. It would fall into the asset category, but it is a depreciating asset that is losing value from the second that you own it to the day that you decide to call it quits. And you should never look at an automobile purchase as an investment unless you're using that automobile for Uber or hauling of goods, where that automobile is going to be generating your income, limousine, whatever you want to call it. Then it might be an investment because that vehicle being put to work is allowing you to generate income and potentially more income than the value of the vehicle, right? But this was totally a personal purchase, a vanity purchase, and it was really just to show everybody else that I made it. This was a 2007 BMW 335 convertible. It was when BMW introduced the new 3 Series hardtop convertibles, 333 horsepower, twin turbo, dope car. Now, I grew up loving cars. And as I mentioned here before, one of my very first jobs was working with a car dealer who also had an auto body shop. And I used to physically go to auctions, check out cars, constantly going to car shows, and always being up to speed with the newest and the latest. So being a young guy, 24, 25 years old, I was like, I always liked the BMWs, especially the M series. This was in an M series, but if any of you car guys out there, if you remember, the previous M3 also had like 300 or 333 horsepower. So, and that was like a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder M3. This 335 was like the step up. It had the same performance as the previous M3, but not the same price tag. And I also was the first time that they came out with a hardtop convertible. So for me, this was like a major milestone for BMW. I always liked the BMWs, I always liked German cars. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Once I graduate, I'm copping that BMW. So I went to the dealership. I leased the vehicle so that it was leased through my business, so I'd at least get a tax deduction for that. And off I went, right? I felt like the man, like pulling up next to older guys, nicer car, newer car, pulling up to like older model BMWs and having that owner look on over, give me that head nod. That was satisfying. And that feeling ran out really quick. So about after 6 months of having the vehicle, I was paying I think it was $1,055 a month as a car payment. And I had, the insurance coverage of a 25-year-old in a pretty fast car. So my insurance was about $5,500 a year. So that you just call that another $500 a month. So this car was costing me, without fuel, without any of the maintenance, was costing me $1,500 a month. And right around that time, the economic crisis hit. So we're talking about 2007, 2008. Everything collapsed. My business was falling apart. All my lines of credit that my business depended on, because I was in the staffing business, so I needed loan money to float my payroll from the time that I was providing the service to the time that my vendors paid me. All of that evaporated. And all I was left with was one of my X-ray tech jobs, which every single one of them I had gotten fired from except for one. All my per diem, where I was contracting myself out, I didn't get fired. They loved me. When I was working a full-time job, for whatever reason it was, whether it was hating me because I had my business going or because I was just a crappy employee because I never really cared about being an employee. I only cared about getting my job done, not the politics of the workplace, not trying to make friends. I was so focused in business that I was just going to my job to collect the paycheck, and I think it showed. I was always late, always talking back to, not talking back to management, but suggesting what they should do to improve their operation. And I guess they didn't like hearing that from the 25-year-old, just fresh out of college business owner who thought he had everything figured out. So whenever they had an opportunity to ask me, they did. Um, so I was in my shrinking business and in between jobs, still making this $1,500 a month payment, and it freaking drove me nuts because I love to travel. If anybody knows me or if you follow me personally, I go on vacation at least once a month. And that's going to be anywhere from 3 to 4 days, just like a weekend getaway, to up to 2 weeks. I'm traveling every single month because I feel I, one, deserve it. Two, I love to see the world, love to expose myself to new foods, new things, new cultures. And that's where I get my kicks out of life. And it really has opened up my mind for other opportunities, even seeing how different cultures facilitate business, how real estate is handled in other countries. So, traveling is essential to me for my personal growth and my personal satisfaction. And every time I wrote out that check to BMW Financial, I was like, this is just another vacation. That I could go to Cancun right now in 2019, flight, hotel, 4 or 5 days, all inclusive for less than $1,500. I could probably bring me and a lady friend on vacation for that price, depending on the hotel. Airfare, hotel, and food and drinks included. So to see that money going away just to BMW Financial for this car that I had was like torture for me. It was like each month, I'm taking less vacations at that time. Each month was a vacation, and I was spending it on a car that was only really a vanity purchase to make me look successful to other people, right? Like, oh, how does this young guy do it? How does he afford this car? And it was obviously through business and my work. But, after a while, my car was just a utility to get me to and from wherever I needed to be. So that wore off. And to make matters worse, I was driving between Queens, right? Because that's where my business was located, in Jamaica, Queens, and still is actually. So I was going from Jamaica, Queens to Southampton, and every freaking hospital office that I had in between that I was working for. I worked a lot of per diem, I worked full-time, and I ran my business. And I was between my Queens office and Southampton, New York, which is about, I would say, easily 100 miles, easily. From Queens Village, New York to Southampton, New York is easily 100 miles. So I was in between all of that all the time. So of course, since I had a lease, my mileage was racking up quickly. And I was like, wow, man, I got to do something because, you know what, I don't want to have to buy this car. So I need to do something to mitigate the accumulation of mileage. So I got a beat up car. I bought this 1993 Toyota Corolla, man. And that, my friend, is my best purchase. This was a clean 1993 Toyota Corolla. It was clean inside and out. Didn't really look too bad. It was, just 20 years old, but it didn't look that bad. It had about 100,000 miles on it. And I owned this car for like 5 years, right? And the only issue that I had with this car, one repair was like a master cylinder went, and I had to change that for like $200. That was it. All it needed was gas, oil changes, and it was moving. It had air conditioning, it had heat. The AC went about 4 years in, and that was a little torturous. But this car, man, I easily racked up over 100,000 miles on it in the time that, one, I had the BMW, and that once I returned my BM, I was just rocking out in my Corolla. And I remember that feeling of kind of like people, anybody who knew that I was in business, saw me driving around in this beat up Corolla, knew times were hard. And I remember thinking to myself, man, they must think I lost it, right? They must think that I'm down and out and I'm just gonna, conform and just fall into the fold and that's it. And in reality, I started to really open up my mind and move and shake. I was, I could say I was borderline depressed because I had the least amount of money that I had in my adult life, right? It was my low point, the least money that I had. I wasn't living the way that I wanted to. At the time, I was still young and concerned with how I was being perceived. And here I was driving around in this, beat up Corolla. And after a while, I had to own it, man. I was like, you know what? This is my car, and this is actually holding me down. I spent $1,000 for this car. Some bikes cost more than that. And I'm zooming around, it's good on gas. I don't have to worry about it getting dented. I don't have to worry about anything. I got liability coverage. My insurance is cheap. Is this really that bad? It's doing exactly what my BMW did, except provide me with that like vanity plug. So I was like, is this really that bad? And I convinced myself that that was my baby, right? It was my car. And if anybody was going to criticize me, I'm going to respond back with, well, are you satisfied paying that $400, $500 a month payment for your, insert brand of car? Does that really make you feel good? Or would you rather go on vacation with that money, right? And then I started traveling again, especially when I gave that car back and the lease was up. Started traveling again, started pumping that extra money back into my businesses, and started to recover, right? And then I started to just say, you know what? Who really cares about what car I drive, right? I'm never buying a new car again because that's a total waste. And I'm never going to concern myself with what the common man thinks of me, especially a stranger. Who the hell is that guy that I'm driving next to on the highway that gives me a nod? He's not putting money in my pocket. He's not waving me down to figure out what I do and how he could work with me. No, he just gives me a smile. And he might be smiling like, look at this idiot spending all that money on that car. He should be spending that on something else, like a vacation or like his business or like marketing dollars. So I completely flipped my thinking to not ever concern myself with how I'm being perceived by the general public. I understand the car that you drive may send a message to a potential client, right? Like, oh man, if he's driving around in this hunk of junk, is he making money? Is he good enough to manage my money? And that's where you're going to have to, obviously going to have to work backwards and kind of change that perception with what you know and with the numbers that your company is performing at. And if you ever find yourself in that situation where you're a real estate agent, you're like, oh, I got to, present myself a certain way for people to respect me. That's, the people who are respecting you off of the things that you have the wrong thinking in the first place, right? They're most likely not going to be your client. And if they're making their decision to have you represent them in any kind of way or manage their money or buy or sell from you based on the things that you have, their minds are twisted, right? Anybody who's hiring a service provider or working with you in any way is going to really be evaluating you for what you can do for them, right? That car, unless you're driving them around, they don't care about what kind of car you're in. They may kind of judge you at first, but once you start talking and once you start expressing clearly your ideas and what you can do for them, and you're responsive on your phone calls, you give good advice, you communicate clearly, your response time is good, they'll respect you for the work that you do rather than your appearance, right? Your appearance that's the first impression, and that makes a difference. However, that's not what's going to keep money in your pocket. That's not what's going to keep your client satisfied. That's not what's going to that's not what's going to get you the referral. That's going to get you that first look, maybe a conversation, maybe. That might even get you judged. Like, okay, look at this guy. He's new in the business, but he's spending, $2,000 a month on a car. He's got a Lambo. He's got, a Porsche. Is he managing his money properly? Does this even make sense? Because I would rather somebody who's frugal. You might get the negative criticism. You might get the negative judgment out of that. The people who are going to value you more for the things and your appearance, they're typically not who you want. You don't want to be around those people because they're going to only be looking to, how to position themselves against you rather than what is the real value that you're offering, okay? So let that be a lesson to you that, the next time that you're out there shopping for a vanity product, whether it's a car or something silly like that, if it's not going to enrich in your character, enrich in your mind, or provide a really good utility, then don't spend your money on it, right? Always think about, is this going to make me smarter? Is this going to allow me to work better? Is this going to allow me to make money? That's what you should be spending your money on, right? Not trying to please other people and not trying to boost your little ego. So those Louis Vuitton bags, Fendi belts, I don't know, whatever other BS people are buying out there to make themselves look good, think about it. Is this actually what you want to be remembered for? And is this going to actually put more money in your pocket? Chances are the answer is no, it's not. So you shouldn't be putting your money to work there. You know, like when I think about how much I spent, $1,500 a month for a 24-month lease, right? So $1,500 a month, that's $36,000 on this car. You know what I could have bought with $36,000? My first 203K, it was $8,500 out of pocket, right? So that I could have bought a house with that money and still had 20 grand left over. I could have then bought another property, putting 20% down, 100 grand somewhere in Mastic, Long Island, that I could rent out that property, Section 8 or to the general public for, you know, anywhere between $1,800 and $2,200 a month. And then I could have got a BM. But instead, I just gave it away, 36 grand. And I didn't accumulate any appreciating assets. I didn't accumulate any cash flow from it. I got a few smiles. A few cute girls looked at me a little longer. And that's it. So I hope that was a lesson for you. I'm glad I was able to disclose that. But it's something that I teach, especially the youngsters out there. Do not spend your money on this BS. Do not. If you're grown and you still have that insecurity, be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, hey, man, who am I really buying this car for? Right? This car is not going to get you more girls. It's not going to get you the clients. It's not going to do any of those things. It's going to get you a lot of prejudice, if anything. And prejudice, whether positive or negative, is not really going to be advantageous to you. Thank you for joining me at ENTP Life. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Once again, if you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscription button, turn your notification bell on so that you get updated and alerted for whenever I drop a new video. If you like this content, of course, don't forget to hit that like button. And while we're in the process of self-disclosure and talking about the stupid purchases that we have made, I'd love to hear from you. What was your dumbest purchase? Write in the comment section below. Tell me what it was, why it was that, and what you learned from making that stupid purchase. Thank you once again, and take care.